Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as we talk a new shock potential transfer swap, but certainly a new transfer target for Ineos and Manchester United that Ten Hag, Wilcox and Sir Jim are all in agreement with. Also, Simon Stone coming out this morning and verifying a lot of what we were discussing last night, that whilst Bruno Fernandes, Onana and Dalot are unlikely to be sold this summer, if the price was right, they'd listen to it. So look, this is coming in from A-star journalists now, that United are basically saying, if the price is right, we'll listen to it. So we'll talk about that as well. Also, want to talk about what the situation is around the Mason Greenwood story. A bid not accepted. Get that word right, expected to come in for Mason Greenwood from Serie A. So that enhances the ability to sell him if that's what Man United decide to do. We'll also talk to you about the Marcus Rashford thing. A lot of people talking about that, especially this morning, about whether he will go, whether he wants to go. Why are Man United even considering taking an offer for him? What's the truth around that? There's been some suggestion this morning that Marcus Rashford has already told Man United that he wants to stay and improve at Manchester United. I would say that is an open goal for Marcus Rashford when no one actually wants to buy him. It's very easy to say you want to stay with somebody when no one else wants you. But look, we'll talk about that as well. Also going to talk about this new Premier League ruling around spending that was voted for yesterday and what that means, whether it's a good or a bad thing as well. But get your likes on the video. We've got the return of the Hotometer. The legendary Hotometer is back. Let's keep this positivity going. Last night's show was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. So how does the Hotometer work? So this is something that we've had for quite a while now, where for a number of years since we've been, really focusing on the summer transfer windows, where it's basically ranking out of 10 out of 10 being nailed on, the top targets for Manchester United at the moment. And it will change based on, it's not going to stay like that all summer. But at the moment, I think it's fair to say that Elise and Todibo would be around 70%, 7 out of 10 likely. You've then got Branthwaite and Frimpong, who I think are just probably one below that. And you've got people like Ederson and Jonathan Davis just in there as a 3. I don't think it's going to happen. It's just an example of a low score. But you will see Guehi there of Crystal Palace. Now, I think this name has to be thrown in now. Manchester United really do like this profile of a player, and they do like this player. And could it be a swap deal? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. But why are Man United interested in Guehi, and why is this now potentially going to be a player that could move above Todibo or Branthwaite over the next few weeks and months? Well, essentially, first of all, he's 23. He gets in the England squad. He's having a very good season with Crystal Palace. He's certainly adapted to many different styles of play that Crystal Palace have had in recent years, because sometimes Palace at the moment are playing quite expansive football. Sometimes under Hodgson, it's quite defensive football. So he's shown himself at a young age to be a Premier League proven centre-back. He's also got that homegrown attraction to him. And more importantly, he's not going to sign a new contract at Crystal Palace. He's got 2 years left on his deal, but he's not going to sign a new deal. So Crystal Palace, if they want to cash in, have got to do it really for a decent price this summer. And hence, this is the interest that Man United have. He fits a lot of what United are looking to do, especially if you lose a Varane and a Maguire. To bring in a homegrown centre-back would be very, very advantageous. In fact, they'd love to bring in Branthwaite and Guehi because they're both homegrown, they're both young, one's left-footed, one's right-footed. The big attraction here also resides with the likes of Barada, who at Man City has seen Pep Guardiola bring in some of the better young British talent. There's no point in having homegrown players that aren't really that good. So if you're building for the long term, you do need homegrown players, and Guehi would be seen as somebody that can do that. Also, Jason Wilcox is very focused on these types of signings as well, the potential young players that could come in and build at Manchester United. And Ten Hag is also on board with this type of signing. So it's certainly now a centre-back that joins the clutch of Branthwaite and Todibo, and now Guehi as a real potential. Now, the price might be a bit of a barrier here, because the talk is that they want to exceed what they got for Wan-Bissaka from us. They'd like something like 55 million quid. But I actually think that United aren't going to spend £55 million on Guehi when they can get Todibo cheaper. So I think that if United are going to approach a Guehi deal, then they're going to do it with the use of probably a Wan-Bissaka. And I would just keep your eyes open on Crystal Palace this summer, and not only just for Elise. I think United are seriously looking at Guehi and Elise and Wan-Bissaka being involved in some sort of deal that suits all parties. There's no doubt that Crystal Palace would like to take Wan-Bissaka back there. They've always wanted to do that. There's certainly a deal that can be done. And when money is changing hands for one player and you want to take another player, it might not be a straight swap, but there might be a technical swap where you go, yeah, okay, we'll give you Wan-Bissaka for 25 million, but you give us Guehi for 50 million. Basically, it cost you 25 million plus Wan-Bissaka. So I would certainly keep an eye on that one 100%. And that is why Guehi is now moving up in the hotometer. Certainly a player that's looking to leave Crystal Palace. There is a lot of interest in him. I think Arsenal have been mentioned as well, but Manchester United and Guehi, I'd certainly keep an eye on that one. Which also feeds into what Simon Stone has been saying this morning. Breaking news on the news show. Simon Stone this morning saying that it would take considerable offers for Manchester United to be interested in selling an Onana, a Dalot, or a Bruno Fernandes. Well, I think this is really significant because Simon Stone is the chief correspondent for Manchester United when it comes to the BBC. Simon Stone, as I've said many times before, is not going to write a story that Man United are looking to buy Osimhen, because we're not. He's not that type of a journalist, and he is somebody that some people call him a tap-in journalist, and I think that's quite offensive because he's not a tap-in journalist. He just won't put something out there unless he's had it verified from sources. Well, I spoke about this last night. Absolutely, Manchester United have briefed journalists yesterday about this fire sale, this clear out, 100%. You don't get Simon Stone, David Ornstein and others talking about a massive clear out from Man United, where basically they're going to listen to offers for most players. You don't get that from a clutch of credible journalists pulling it out their arse or having a little coffee and saying, let's put this out there. It will have been briefed from somewhere. And I think the brief is what it is. Some people struggled with it last night, but it is what it is. This is Manchester United trying to create a new environment and trying to basically tell players that nobody's safe, trying to create a mentality of work and focus. And there is no kick side. There is no downside to this. I mean, for too long, our players have been too comfortable. We're not going to sell Onana. We're not going to sell Dalot. But Simon Stone saying Onana, Dalot, Bruno, unlikely to go unless a big offer comes in. If I pick that up and I'm Dalot or Bruno, I'm like, well, unlikely to go, but if a big offer comes in, they'd sell me. There's one of two ways to go there. A weak mentality player goes, well, I'm not happy about this, and you find out who those weak mentality players are, or a strong mentality player comes in and says, well, right, let's get to work. I'm not being sold. I want to be part of this project. So I think it's about separating the wheat from the chaff, as they say. And I think it's clever. There will be some people knocking on the door this morning saying, what's all this about me potentially being sold? But you'll definitely understand straight away that you've got the wrong player there, because you want players to respond to this. And also, there is the slim chance that a Real Madrid or somebody might ring up and go, never thought you were willing to sell him. We really like him. We will give you £60 million for him. And then you might have a deal to do. So I think it's very, very clever. But what I would say is, on a news show especially, this is coming from Simon Stone. This is not coming from The Sun. This is coming from Simon Stone. So I repeat what I said last night. As soon as I saw the multiple people talking about it last night, you can like it or lump it. It can be your favourite player or not. But the cold, harsh fact is, bar Garnacho, Mainu and Højlund, everybody's got a price. Everybody's got a price. And is that wrong? Is that wrong? Maybe it is. Is it right? Maybe it is. Personally, I don't think there's a player in that United squad at the moment, apart from the three young players that you know can get better, that you would say, oh, you 100% deserve to stay here. I mean, look, Dalot's been brilliant this season. He could win Player of the Year. But if somebody offered you, I don't know, Frimpong, and Dalot's got to go, I'd do the deal because I think Frimpong's better. If we want to get better, we can't accept what we are. And if we want to get better, nobody should be safe. What if somebody said, we'll give you £80 million for Bruno Fernandes, and for that £80 million, you can go and buy Musiala or Wirtz? Does that make you better over the next 5 years? Looking at the profile of Bruno and his age? These are the sort of decisions that if you want to get better. What have I always said? What have we always said? Ruthless aggression is what you need to get better. Man City are miles ahead. Arsenal are miles ahead. Where around that team do you see the gains? Because Martinez and Shaw will make us better if they can stay fit, but they won't make us as good as Man City and Arsenal. We've got to make big, big choices. Would you make this graphic available to share, says Jelly? We can tweet that graphic off United Stand, definitely. League says, I want to order this season extra spice FA Cup with... Okay, whatever. All right. Just a bit weird. We need to be ruthless, says Savage. We definitely do. Everyone should be sellable beside the kids, says John. Yeah, and I personally think it's a good idea. It might not work, but I do think it is a good idea from Manchester United, and I certainly think it's something that that will sharpen the minds over the next few weeks, because at the moment it's like stale bread. Everybody's just can't be arsed, and there is genuine frustration around that football club at the moment as well. Ten Hag's frustrated, the owners are frustrated. We're going to talk about this, spending cap, which Man United actually voted against, which I think is very interesting as well. We've also got a lot going on around what's going to happen with regards to the next few weeks and the manager. But look, when it comes to Mason Greenwood, we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's just talk about Marcus Rashford, because Marcus Rashford has sort of been thrown into this because he's the biggest earner and he's our best player, whether you like it or not. He's our most high-profile player as well. So when you get this story going out from credible people like Simon Stone and David Ornstein, that Man United are looking to potentially sell anybody apart from Garnacho, Mainu and Højlund, and there's an absence of Rashford there, because he's the star player, he'll get spoken about. That's not toxic. That's not an agenda. He is the Saka of Manchester United, in the sense that he is meant to be the star player. So when his name is absent from a brief about who's not for sale, and it's Garnacho, Mainu and Højlund, then it will naturally lead to a conversation about what his future is. So what we're hearing this morning is that Marcus Rashford wants to stay at Manchester United. Marcus Rashford wants to show that he's a Man United player. I would accept that that's true. I don't know that it's true. We haven't had a statement from Rashford, but we had his interview with the Players Tribune about a month ago, where he said he loves the club, and anybody who questions his commitment to the club, he will challenge that. There was a lot of things that he came out with, of course, but it's very easy to say that you're staying at a football club when nobody wants you. Like, is Kylian Mbappe coming out and saying that he wants to stay at PSG? Now, he loves PSG. He's been at PSG. He went from Monaco to PSG. He stayed in the French league to go to PSG. So Kylian Mbappe's got a lot of passion for PSG, and he's probably stayed there too long. He's not staying there anymore because there are a list of clubs saying, come and play for us, and Real Madrid. So it's very easy to say you want to stay at a club when nobody wants you. Mbappe wouldn't be leaving PSG if no one wanted him. He'd be saying, I love PSG. This is where my heart and soul is. I love PSG. I don't want to leave PSG. I want to make PSG great again. PSG is in my heart and soul, and I'm determined to make PSG a big winner. It's very easy for Kylian Mbappe to say that when nobody else wants him, and all is on the table is a contract that he's got with PSG. Marcus Rashford will say, I believe, and I think it is true, that he will come out and say he's got no intention of leaving. He loves Manchester United. He's been here since he was a kid. This is the club for him. There's no other club for him. I don't think it's even a choice for Rashford. There is no choice for Rashford. He has a long contract and there is no option on the table. So this is not abuse. This is just football opinion. I'm not talking about wheelie bins. So I'm talking about pure football opinion here. There is no offer on the table for him. 2 years ago, apparently his agent went over to Paris. True or not, that was a story. There is no conversation or flight to Paris. There is no interest from Arsenal. There is no interest from La Liga. There is no club looking to buy Marcus Rashford. His only PR is to say, I want to stay at Man United and be a good player, because it's his only option. So Rashford wanting to stay at Man United, of course he does. It's not because it's his only option. It's his only option. But if there was some statement that came out, I've got no intention of going, I've had loads of offers before, I'm staying at Man United, my heart and soul is here, this is where I want to be, well, bloody show it. You know, even Henry Winter, who's a big fan, even mainstream pundits who are big fans, even I, who am a big fan, even you, who want him to play well, show it then. Like, the biggest thing is, if you want to be here and you want to be a Man United player, why have you not shown it for the last however long? Show it. Simple as that. Like, if you want to be a Man United player, be a Man United player. Like, show us you're a Man United player. Because words don't speak anything compared to actions. I think Rashford will be here at Man United next season. I don't think Man United would like to move him on. I do. I do. I genuinely do. I don't think they'd admit it. I genuinely think Man United would love to move Marcus Rashford on. I think they'd love somebody to come in and say, there's 70 million quid, and I think United would snap their hands off for a multitude of reasons. I think it's a massive statement to let him go, and it's a massive symbolisation of change, because Rashford's been here for years and is seen as the star of the team. And I think if United got rid of Rashford or sold Rashford, it would be like, I think everybody's mouth would drop and go, this genuinely is something new. For Ineos, it would be perfect, because they could just go, everybody from ex-players to the media to fans would go, oh, hold on a minute, I can't criticise this. This is incredible. This actually is a new beginning. To do that is the statement of all statements. And I think they would do it. But I think they also know they won't be doing it, because there won't be an offer on the table to do it. So they've got to try and get Rashford back to where he was a year ago. And I think that's what will happen. Do you think Rashford can get back to his best, says Isaac? I think we can. I think we will see a season of Rashford like last year. 2 years ago, he was here. 2 years ago, he just had a season like he's had this year. Last year, he was brilliant. So next year, he'll probably have a good season. I don't think we're going to see... Well, I don't know why we can't see 2 or 3 years of really good Rashford, but it's not looked like that's going to happen for a while. But never say never. Do you think youth players, Wheatley, Amas, etc., make up a good part of the first team squad next season? Certainly plays into transfers, in my opinion, says Jared. No, I don't think any of those young players are about to be playing regular football for Man United next season. I think maybe one will come through, like we've seen with Mainu this year. But the only reason Amas and Wheatley and any other young player are on the bench at the moment is because there's nobody else. There will be 1 or 2 selected to be part of the first team, but we can't have 5 or 6 young players on the youth on the bench. It's yeah, you can't do that. Dean Corbett says, I saw your retweet about Bella Kotchup available for 20 million. Is that someone you would take at United? Always thought he looked good. I mean, look, this is nothing to do with United. It's purely speculation. He's not on the hot meter, and it's not something that's... I want to talk about relevant stories. We'll talk about Greenwood next, but Bella Kotchup, Fabrizio Romano spoke about this morning on Twitter that Bella Kotchup is available for 20 million quid. He's been at Southampton the last 2 years. 20 million euros I think he's available for. Look, I don't know whether United are looking at him at all, but what I will say is I was a massive fan of him in the season that Southampton got relegated. I know they got relegated, but Roy Keane got relegated with Nottingham Forest and still looked brilliant, and we bought him. Obviously, Bella Kotchup has been playing in the Championship this year, and Southampton are quite good. For that price, I think he looks really good. Also, he's been at Southampton where Wilcox was, so you could put 2 together and make a 4. But for that price, I think he's left-footed. I like him. I think there's something there. But I don't know whether United will look at it as well, Dean. But I do like it. Do you think... Okay, I've done that one as well. Is he injury prone? I don't know. I don't know. I'm purely talking about just an opinion on a player that I quite liked. I apologise this morning. It's a bit of a sunny day today, and it's set off my allergy, whatever it is. So I've got a bit of a runny nose today, but that's how things are rolling. Let's talk about this Mason Greenwood story as well. We are here on a news show, and I'm also going to talk to you about these new rules that have been voted for by the majority of Premier League clubs, but Man United voted against it with Man City and Aston Villa. So we'll talk about this new spending cap that's going to come in, and we'll summarise it as well. It takes a little bit of reading and a little bit of understanding, and you can give your opinions on it as well. Keep an eye on Tapsoba, says Turp. Yep. I wouldn't rule it out. I think he's a player that Fabrizio's mentioned as well. Certainly wouldn't be ruling that one out as well. In relation to Mason Greenwood, keep an eye on Juventus. We've mentioned this a few times over the last couple of months. Manchester United are open to offers for Mason Greenwood, but they're not going to let him go on the cheap. He's certainly the sort of player that when you sell him, he could still end up being a really good player. You know, he was a good player at United. He could still end up being a good player. So United are not going to let him go to another club that don't have the issues that we've got around Greenwood, and they're not going to let him go on the cheap. So there will have to be, if Greenwood goes, there will have to be some sort of fee that's suitable to United. A lot of Italian reports are talking about it. Now, some Italian reports aren't the best, but Juventus and Mason Greenwood is a definite inquiry. Now, whether they have the funds to put something together, I don't know. And whether they will be the priority for someone like Mason Greenwood, I don't know. What I would say is he will not be at Getafe next season. I don't think he's going to be at Man United next season. So it's going to be about who can raise the money that hits Man United's target for him. And I certainly think Juventus is interesting. I think Juventus is a fantastic club to sign for, by the way. I mean, if you're Mason Greenwood and you're trying to build your football career back, and you've had a good year at Getafe, and you've got someone like Juventus going for you, I mean, that's a big step up. I know it's not coming back to the Premier League, which is maybe what he wants to do at some point. I still think it might be a bit soon for that. But going and playing for somebody like Juventus would be an amazing adventure. And I think that they're certainly going to have a good, strong look at him and see what they can do on the financials. My only concern with that is how much money does a Juventus have when Man United are going to be looking for, I believe, 35 to 40 million quid for him. He's done well at Getafe, and he did well at the weekend, but it's not like he's not been like, I don't think Man United can command 50 million. He's got 2 years left on his deal, I think, maybe 1 year left on his deal, actually. So I think United will look around 35, maybe 40, maybe include some add-ons as well. But the interesting thing with Greenwood, if we're going to have a grown-up conversation, is it just depends what interest is there and what people are willing to pay. Because if somebody comes in and says, we'll give you 20 million, United have got a decision to make, because they can't do that deal. And then they've got to think about whether they'd bring him back. So I think the price is going to be the big thing there. Tom Edwards says service for the forward line is a priority, and it's been missing for years. It is. We've got to bring in, I mean, look who's top of the odometer. We've got to bring in players that are creative. We're such a bad creative side in the final third. Regardless of what you think about the defence, we are. Gems has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much. And Sarvish says, which one do you think is more difficult? Turning Rashford into an £80 million player or turning Greenwood into an £80 million player? And in that case, which would you be better off selling for 40 million now, Rashford or Greenwood? I mean, is that not probably the best chat we've had certainly this month? I mean, that, Sarvish, I would be very proud of that. I mean, that is the sort of question you want. That should be on, you know, that is an amazing question. Very rarely I'm like, wow, we get a lot of good questions, but that is intelligent on so many levels, and it's the sort of question that really you want it on a Monday Night Football. You want that on a Sunday afternoon. You want that question on the toes of Roy Keane and Gary Neville, because that would have them tongue-tied. They'd be like, what can I say? What can't I say? You know, people are going to panic about all the Greenwood stuff that's gone on. People are going to go, I don't want to upset Rashford, etc. That question's brilliant, Sarvish, and it's perfect for here, because we're not going to glaze over it, and we're not, well, I'll do a poll on it for a start, and I will answer it. So basically what Sarvish is saying is, take away all the politics or the drama or whatever you want to call it. If United want to turn Rashford or Greenwood into an £80 million player over the next 2 years, who's most likely to be it? And therefore, who should you take the loss on if you want to get rid of them? And look, I think we all know that's not going to be the scenario, but as a hypothetical, it's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't think we've ever done this. I don't think anybody's ever really touched on it, not even TalkSport. But if you had to get rid of Greenwood or Rashford, who would you get rid of? And this is going to cause controversy. Like, look, this is the United Stand. It's a community thing. It's about fan opinion. It's about real fan opinion. We don't shirk it. But I'll tell you what, this is going to get taken. This is going to cause trouble. There's going to be people going, oh my God, it's so toxic. How could fans pick Greenwood over Rashford? This is a new low. But we're talking about footballers. We're talking about footballers. Look, I will say this. Greenwood needs to leave Man United. And he needs to go this summer. And it's not all for footballing reasons. And it's not all because Man United don't want him. I don't think it's good for him and his family to be playing for Man United next season. I think the abuse and noise around Greenwood next season would be very difficult for him to deal with, and there's a duty of care to him. And that's always been my stance. People say, you just don't want him back because of what happened and this, that and the other. Look, that has to be a factor. But what nobody ever touches on with Greenwood is, you bring him back this summer, the noise, the media, the abuse would be horrific. And some of it would be in Old Trafford. There are people in our fan base who will boo him. Forget going to Anfield or where he'll get slaughtered there, but even in Old Trafford he'll get booed. Even if you want to cheer him, he'll get booed. It will become tough. Look at the Ten Hag in and Ten Hag out stuff we've had. People are at loggerheads. Can you imagine it about something like this? It's not the time to come back and play in the Premier League for Mason Greenwood. Not this summer. Maybe the summer after. Maybe the summer after that. It isn't the time, in my opinion. But on purely football, who is more likely to be an £80 million player in the next 2 years? Greenwood's the better footballer. He is. He is the better footballer. I can't lie to myself because of what he did off the field. When he was playing at Man United, I called him a generational talent. And I don't know whether he is anymore because he's missed 2 years and that's a lot of development, but he's still a talent. Greenwood's a better player than Rashford. It's a fact. It is. In my opinion, it's a fact. Greenwood's better than Rashford. Always has been. And therefore, I think he's got the potential to be. He's got more IQ with the ball. He's more deliberate in what he's trying to do. Like, he's more technical in what he's trying to do. Rashford is more flair. So, yeah. Who will have the better career? Rashford could end up having the better career because he hasn't missed 2 big years of his career. And he scores a lot of goals. And he's a regular for England. And he's Man United's best player. So I think Rashford could end up having the better career. But I think Greenwood's the better talent. And this is the mic drop. Ravel Morrison is technically a better player than Scott McTominay by a very, very, very long way. But Ravel Morrison's career is in the bin. And Scott McTominay is going to the Euros with Scotland and is a regular for Man United. So you can't just live your life on, well, if Greenwood's the better player, let's sell Rashford and bring Greenwood back. Because there's mitigating circumstances. But for me, Greenwood's the better player. Greenwood's the technically better player than Rashford. But that doesn't mean we sell Rashford and we bring Greenwood back. Because as I said, Ravel Morrison was technically better than most young... Ravel Morrison's technically better than Rashford. Certainly better than McTominay. Where's Ravel Morrison? So it's not always about who's the better player. But great question. Great question by Sarvish. Gems has gifted 5 memberships. What a gem. Gem is absolute star. Make sure you give a W for that. Scott says as well, you've got to bear in mind that Mason's loving life away from Manchester United. Reese says, I agree, Mark. I voted Rashford out as I feel Greenwood would be easier to sell in the transfer market due to market interest than Rashford, in my opinion. Thank you very much for that. I want to add something in here as well that's very important today. I don't want to talk about the manager much because I'm really enjoying talking about selling players, recruiting players. It's the most positive I've felt for ages, and because I want to get on with this rebuild. We've still got games to play this season. We've still got an FA Cup final, and let's hope we can win something. But there's a massive part of me that wants to get to June and see what the plan is and start to see players leaving and coming in. I can't wait for it. So I'll cling on to positivity at the moment because the negativity is draining. But I did just want to bring this in. I saw Rich Fay, who I think is a Manchester Evening News journalist, tweet this out today. And 61 separate instances of injury or illness for Manchester United this season, without a recognised left-back in 27 of 47 matches. And remember, in those 20 games where we did have a recognised left-back, it wasn't always Luke Shaw, it would have been Reguilon. Only been able to use his strongest back four 5 times this season. How is that not an excuse? How is that not an excuse? It would be really, really harsh to say that this is not a factor in United's season. Obum says, just happened. What's the question on the poll? Very unclear. Either or, Greenwood or Rashford. Who do you think is the better player? So that was what Savish said, wasn't it? Who's the better player, Greenwood or Rashford? That's basically it. I agree, Mark. Thank you very much. Hold on a minute. Let me just send this. Right. I want to talk to you about this. Get your questions in. There's lots we've been talking about this morning. Not moaning. We've not been moaning this morning, actually, which is a nice change. So I want to talk to you about this thing that the Premier League voted for yesterday, because if we do have a new future under Ineos, then I think that we have to. There's some breaking. Sorry, I'll talk about this in a minute. Breaking news: Man United are aiming to recruit 3 key signings this summer: a centre back, a central midfielder, and a forward to enhance the starting team, with any other additions dependent on outgoings. I mean, you've got to be very careful at the moment. I mean, that's from Luckhurst. We're in that zone at the moment. Like I said this yesterday about Todibo. We're in that zone at the moment where there are so many outlets trying to get a story about Man United that we're getting regurgitation. And obviously on a news show, we're here to bring you the news. But on the 8 o'clock show, I said last night, there's people trying to rehash the Todibo story and say Todibo is a high priority for Man United this summer. But we've known this for months. In fact, we've known it for a year. So when I read stuff like that, Man United are prioritising a centre-back, a midfielder and a striker this summer, that's not breaking news. That's not slow sports news. That's snail news. Like, we know and have known for about 8 months that we're going to sign a striker and a centre-back this summer. The question is how many centre-backs we're going to sign. I think we've got to sign 2. We know we're signing a striker. And as for a midfielder, well, I think it's an open goal that we're going to sign a midfielder as well, because it's become abundantly clear that Casemiro is not going to turn it around to what he was last year. So Casemiro's going to go. Amrabat's not worked out, so we're going to buy a midfielder as well. Look, I'm not interested. What I'm trying to say is I'm not interested in reporting that Man United are going to buy a striker, a centre-back and a midfielder. It's boring, it's obvious, it's regurgitation. What I'm interested in, and I think you're interested in, is who those players are going to be. And I agree that if we're going to get Frimpong, we have to sell a right back. And if we're going to get a left back, we've got to sell a left back. And I agree, if we're going to buy a winger like Elise, we've got to sell a winger. It's logical. If Greenwood goes, Elise probably comes in. If Wan-Bissaka goes, then Frimpong is possible. But centre-back, midfielder, striker, they have to come in. Like, we can't, there's no one to sell to get a striker in. Martial's going for free, so we have to buy a striker. We have to bring a centre-back in because Varane's going for free. And if Casemiro's going in, we have to bring a midfielder in. What I'm interested in is who the centre-back's going to be. And I think it's going to be one of those 3 on there. What I'm interested in is who the midfielder's going to be. And at the moment, yes, Ederson's on the hotometer, but I think the lad from Wolves, maybe Holman as well is an interesting one. We're 100% going to sign a striker. I don't think it's going to be Jonathan David. I haven't got a bloody clue who it's going to be. So it's the names of the players. It's the names of the players we need at this point, and that's going to be the exciting thing. Sakil, welcome to the Members Club. Get your badge in. Thanks for your support. You're an absolute legend. Greenwood is him, says Obam. Hope you're well, my friend, says Safe. I think without the 61 separate occasions of injury, we would definitely be in a much better position. Having to play rotational players is not going to aid us. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk to you now about something that you might want a pen and paper for, but surprisingly, this got voted in yesterday in principle. There was a Premier League vote amongst all the football clubs yesterday in London, where Premier League clubs have voted in principle for plans to introduce a spending cap from the 25-26 season. So how does this impact Manchester United without boring everybody to death? Because Man United voted against it, but only 3 clubs voted against it, and you need about 7. Chelsea didn't vote at all. So they're now going to go away, get the meat on the bones, and come back for an official vote this summer. So why are Man United voting against it? So effectively, what we have at the moment is a set of rules that are in line with the UEFA rules, whereby a club can only spend 70% of its revenue on squad costs, and squad costs would be wages for players, transfer fees, agent fees, etc. So basically what we were expecting was that you would only be able to spend 70% of your revenue on those sort of things. And what the vote for yesterday was something called anchoring. Now, anchoring with an A is basically in its simplest form, it means all clubs in the Premier League can only spend a maximum of the multiple of what the bottom club earns in TV revenue. So instead of being able to spend 70% of your revenue, so if Man United earn 600 million, it's a percentage of Man United's 600 million. Under what they voted for yesterday, and I think it's problematic, you can only spend a multiple of what the bottom team in the Premier League earns in TV revenue. So, for example, if the bottom club gets 100 million in TV revenue and the anchoring system is a multiple, let's say 4, then you can only do 100 million times 4, which means 400 million pounds. So every club under this system would only be able to spend the same amount of money. So let's say it's 500 million. You can only spend 500 million every year on transfers, wages, agent fees. So every club in the Premier League has the same limit, whether you're Luton Town or Manchester City. Now, a lot of clubs have voted for this and Man United haven't. Why haven't we voted for it, and why haven't Man City voted for it? Well, Man City made over £700 million in revenue last year. So if a new rule comes in saying you can only spend 450, they would say, but we've earned another 300 million and we can't spend it. Why would Man United not vote for it? Well, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has just bought this football club and is looking to take it back to the top. And it's a lot harder to take it back to the top when you've got more money to spend than you can and you're having to spend the same as everybody else. So some will say it's very, very fair, but it actually benefits clubs who at the moment can't really spend that much, but suddenly they can, i.e. Newcastle. Newcastle's revenue is really low. So if Newcastle's revenue is 200 million and this rule comes in, they can suddenly spend 450 million and they've got the money from Saudi Arabia. So you can see why the bigger clubs don't want it, because their revenue will exceed what the limit's going to be. But for the clubs that revenue doesn't hit what the level's going to be, they've suddenly got more spending power and it brings everybody down. In essence, it could make for a more competitive league. However, you're still, if you're in the Champions League, you're still going to be bound by the UEFA spending. So there's two very different rules here. The UEFA spending rule is different to what's been voted in by the Premier League yesterday in principle. So it's messy. I don't think it will get through. I don't think it will, because I think that clubs can challenge it. But that basically is that's basically it in a nutshell. They want to set a limit on what everybody can spend, which will bring the richer clubs down to a limit which is lower than what they can spend, but it'll allow the clubs that can't get up to that limit to go up to it. It'll benefit people like Villa, Newcastle, who've got money to spend but don't have the revenue to do it. It'll be harder to get more of the world-class players in the league a season, says Ricky. Yeah. Somebody just said, can you do a hotometer on outgoings? I quite like that idea, actually. I quite like that idea. I think it's a good one. So, yeah, effectively, that's how that would work. I suppose the most important thing is why have Man United voted against it? And I think Man United, certainly under Sir Jim Radcliffe, will look at it and go, well, our revenue at the moment is around 600 million. With what we're planning around the stadia, better sponsors, better transfer dealings, I think United know over the next 3 years that revenue is going to go higher. But what's the point if they can't spend it? So I think that they'll be saying, look, it's not fair that we get hit with a limit that's way below what our revenue is. And Man City 100% will be saying, hold on a minute, we actually can afford to spend a hell of a lot more than that limit. It's not fair. So, yeah. But then, I don't know why Aston Villa didn't vote for it, actually. That's a bit of a weird one, because they voted against it, which is what Ger said. But look, I'm not a Villa fan. I don't know their finances. It might not help Newcastle, but it will certainly help the clubs that, if you think about it, it will help the clubs like Brighton, because Brighton actually earn quite a lot of money from the Premier League, but they can't spend that much under FFP. Everton can't spend that much under FFP. Nottingham Forest can't spend that much, but they have the money. There's a lot of clubs in the Premier League below the top 6 who can afford to spend money, but can't do it because of revenue. So what this is going to do for a lot of clubs in the Premier League is knock their revenue spend massively up, which allows them to spend into that area, which will make them more competitive. So it will make for a more competitive Premier League. 100%. And I'm arrogant here. As a Man United fan, I'm saying, oh, I don't like this. It makes us weaker. But it also makes Man City weaker. It makes a lot of the top clubs weaker, and it makes a lot of the smaller clubs stronger, which will make for a stronger Premier League. But we're not an island. We're not the NFL. In the NFL, if the Premier League was the only league in football, I'd sort of go, in the long term, this might make football better. But La Liga exists. Serie A exists. And they're not going to do what we're doing. They'll see it as a weakness, and they will exploit it. So, yeah, my problem is, I don't know how it works properly. And it could lead to a Super League as well. It could lead to teams like Man United and Man City going, we don't like these rules. Let's have a chat with Florentino Perez, which was my initial thought yesterday. It's a terrible idea, says Carl. And Tom says a lot of players would go abroad and the EPL will be weakened, says Tom. Yeah. I don't know. But look, check out the Goldbridge Saves Football podcast, because we were speaking about a lot of stuff today around a lot of stuff yesterday about this, and the podcast's out now. So scan the QR code and get involved with it. You're very welcome to join the Ultras. It's a movement. Some of the comments yesterday, this is the best podcast in football at the moment, and a hidden gem. So make sure you scan that QR code and go and give it a listen when you leave here. But we were talking about this today. Something needs to be done about Man City, and not the 115. If they get off with the 115, something still needs to be done. They are too powerful. Way too powerful. They've got a massive spend. They've got a massive squad. They've got massive revenue. Man City are a juggernaut. So something needs to be done about it. But what can you do? I don't know. Could be the downfall of the league, says Anonymous. Definitely. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. We're back at 2 o'clock. I'm on at 7 o'clock tonight because I'm watching Bayern Munich against Real Madrid at 8 o'clock on That's Football. So 8 o'clock show moves to 7 o'clock for the next 3 nights, actually, because there's football for the next 3 nights I'm doing on That's Football. So 7 o'clock show tonight, not 8 o'clock. Fantastic show again. Great Great. I'm going to do the poll now. Great show again. The last couple of shows have been a lot more positive, a lot less toxic because of the topics we're talking about. Because we're talking about the future. We're talking about optimism, and we're talking about some of the changes that need to be made at United, whether it's removal of players or bringing players in. That's the real change. Whatever happens with the manager, and maybe Ten Hag won't be the manager, but whatever happens with the manager, it's actually a small problem, because whoever the manager is, these things need to happen. Outgoings, ingoings are the priority. And I think we're all united on that, which is great. So well done to the community. Another great show. Quinstar says, if you asked the same question last year, Mark, everybody would have said Rashford was better than Greenwood due to form. 69% of you think Greenwood's better than Rashford, by the way. Peter, EFA Football Pro Gamer, thank you very much for joining the members club as well. You're an absolute legend for getting your badge in. Brilliant show this morning, everyone. I'll catch you a little bit later. Take care and speak to you in a bit.